What's up, everybody? What is going on? We have an amazing show for you today, and I'll tell you why. Because the wolf pack over on Telegram has reached 150. And we didn't only get 150, we got 152. I hope you're happy today. I hope you are happy because we're rejoicing, aren't we? We are rejoicing. I had that cranked up really, really loud. That was bumping so loud. Oh, man, I got to get it louder in my headphones. Hold on. Oh, there we go. Give me those wolves, kids. Come on. Give me those wolves. Boom, 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 boom in the comments. Because we're going to rock it out today. Because we're rejoicing. And why? We're the Glad Cats. We are the Glad Cats. We're rejoicing every single day. It's another day that the Lord has made. We rejoice, we're glad in it, we're taking a knee for Jesus Christ, for Christ the King. We're resolving deep down as we can possibly go. We are resolving something very simple, right? We are assuring the world and ourselves and our loved ones, our churches, our jobs, our schools, our nation, our world, the past, the present, and the future, to never give up. Keep on smiling and memento mori. Ow! Secular age today. That's what we're going to be talking about. Secular age. Gonna have to get to these comments, but it's Wolfpack Day. I was almost tempted to just make it a day where we engage in the Wolfpack, where we just rock it out in the comment section. But we got too much to go through. It's too urgent of a situation. Plus, we do that over there anyway. We do that over there. If you want to be involved in that, I'm going to show you a little sneak peek, a little peekaboo over there as to what we got going on Telegram. Because if you're not over there, something might actually be wrong with you. Something might be wrong with you. Seriously, what are you thinking? What are you thinking not being part of the Wolf Pack on Telegram? Speaking of the Wolf Pack on Telegram, boom, there it is. Let's go over here. Let's go over here. Yeah. How do you like that thumbnail, by the way? Okay, I had it up here. I had some cool stuff I wanted to show everybody real quick. Let's see, man. There's so much good stuff. There is so much good stuff. But there was something Oh, I can't skip over this. Look at that. That's my daughter, by the way. So at the end of the episode, you hear this voice. I wanted people to dream bigger thoughts. That's her. She passed away. She passed away in 2016. She had brain cancer. That right there. And this is what keeps me going. What keeps you going, by the way? What are things in your life that keep you going? Because this is one of those things, for me. I've been through some hard times, and I look at this picture, and there's just something about it, In it with her Doctor Who blanket, her mint chocolate chip ice cream cone, her super cute eyes that look much older than she actually is, right? She has these ancient eyes, this little smile like she's got something up her sleeve a little bit, like she knows something that I don't. And the scar, right? The stitches are still there. She had a 17-hour brain surgery. And I said, it's just one of those things. One of those things. Of course, we got Mr. Lofton. A big shout out to me. Oh, I am so sorry. I am so sorry. I must do this. Right? It's just part of the deal. It's part of the deal. Check it out. See this? Oh, yeah. I believe I made this a public group just now. Michael Lofton. Yes, finally. Everybody was wondering, the whole world is wondering, why can't I find Michael Lofton? Why can't I find him on Telegram? I heard that he has this new creation. He has this remarkable group. And look at the activity on that. Do you like his live chats, by the way? I know you do. Look at this. It just goes and goes and goes and goes. Yeah. Yeah, right there. Reason and Theology Chat. So t.me/ and that's so simple. T.me. How easy is that? / Reason and Theology Chat. You can join that. It's now a public group. You can make little videos like these that you see, the little circles there. You can make audio, share pictures, share links, polls, all that stuff. Totally. Heresy located. Yeah, but the thing is, if you're not over there, you're not only missing out on the good fun, right? We have a lot of fun, right? We got to find this guy. We got to find this cat right here, okay? Andrew Stahl. Is Andrew Stahl in the chat right now? Is he in there? If not, we got to wrangle that dude up. We got to wrangle him up, man. Yeah. And because here's the thing. This guy might be the most hardcore Paleocrat Diaries fan on the planet. Just these comments alone. Just these comments alone. Right here. You will know them by your fruits. Where's the joy? Paleo brings the joy. I love you, man. Right here. Thank you, Jeremiah. I was becoming an ambulance chaser. It's good to be back on track. Now, this one right here. Listen. I went to confession last night and said that I am done causing division like that. I want nothing to do with it. I'm joining the Wolfpack. We are waiting for you, brother. We are waiting. We're going to find you, bud. But we've got this. I think I actually have a video of this. I'll share this actually right now. So let's go ahead off of here. The Wolfpack, of course, you know, you've got the whole gang over there. They've been having fun all morning long, right? All different comments, all different people. Oh, they have a running joke as to when I'm going to start. I was pretty close, wasn't I? I was pretty close. Was it like 11:03 or something like that? It was 11:03. I'm doing better. Oh, I'm doing better. I feel good. Oh man, yeah. But you can check that out. But look, yesterday we have these other two right here. We have the Wolfpack Prayer Chain, and we have the Book Club of the Canine Brigade, and we've got the Wolfpack Resources page. Okay, the Resources page has stuff on there. These are some of my favorite Bibles. Okay, I talk about commentary from them, stuff like that. It was actually Julia Maloney. Was asking, how do you read the Bible in or out of order, stuff like that. And we talk about it, but we also provide a whole bunch of really cool stuff here, right? All these are screenshots from different prayer books, right? All different kinds of prayers. You've got files in here, different PDFs, links. I don't know if there's any music over it. There's one, the Angelus, right? Sung in Latin. And so you can see that that's how every single page works that way. Even every DM works that way. It's just uniform. It doesn't matter what it is, okay? But we got the Wolfpack Resources. We've got the Book Club of the Canine Brigade, okay? We had a meeting yesterday. That was our third one, and it was about the last chapter of the fourth mansion and the first chapter of the fifth mansion. That was yesterday in Interior Castle by St. Teresa of Avila. And before that, there was 4 chapters that we covered before that. So we did 2 in 2 days. I think 3 hours or 3.5 hours worth of video that will be posted in a relatively short period of time. But it's not just that. It's not just that. We have a prayer list, and I don't want to go through all of that. I mean, it's public, but not as public as this. Okay, so but the idea is people reach out to us with prayer requests. Let me get back off this. Okay. So people reach out to us and they've got prayer requests, right? Okay. We get this all the time, right? Don't you? You go online, people say, hey man, will you pray for me? Now, maybe many of you watching right now, maybe you do pray. Maybe you're not one of those thoughts and prayers people, but we all know the thoughts and prayers people, right? The folks that's all they say, and then they just keep moving on to the next, cat emoji or whatever, the next meme, the next GIF. So they don't rarely ever take the time to just step back. And even if they do, it's all so fast, right? Because it's coming in a stream that is happening on this timeline that we have on social media. And so it's easy to forget. It's as chaotic and, in fact, neurotic as watching commercials on TV news where, one segment of TV news, they're talking about a nuclear holocaust. The next thing you do on TV news, they're talking about a little kid and his puppy that were in the swimming pool. And then they go to a commercial, and the commercial ends up being about toothpaste and maybe a little bit of Viagra. Something like that. It's just all over the place. And then some Nesquik, Chuck E. Cheese. And so then you're back to the crazy. You're back to the court, the trial, and I'm not even going to say the name, right? Because they're still dropping people like flies talking about this. But you know what I'm talking about, okay? And so, you go back and forth and back and forth. That's neurotic, man. That's nuts. And it's kind of that way with timelines. In fact, it's not kind of. It's like even worse. It's more unpredictable even. And so sometimes it's hard to even remember. Oh, yeah, I think it was somebody who told me to pray. We don't have that issue there. Okay, number one, it's entirely dedicated to it. Number two, Haley Luya is, yep, right here, the admin here in the comments. the admin or the mod there in the comments. She's got that. She's got her name all in blue. Got a whole bunch of wolves. I love you. Yeah, isn't she the best? Isn't she the best? We're actually going to show a video of her. I showed it on Meaning of Catholic, but I did not show it here, and I'm going to. I'm going to show it here. And so hopefully, man, hopefully David Gray shows up. I told David Gray on Twitter, I told him I was going to be talking about him. That cat better show up. He better see it. And be entertained, man. Be entertained. I'm going to read a book. We're going to talk about a book, and I'm going to laugh. And I'm going to say profound things, and that's what we're going to do. Wave my arms around like this, and make weird faces and stuff. Crazy noises. So make sure you mention him over there on Twitter. Get his attention. All right, drag his keister in here, okay? But, but the thing is, she is the one that is the admin over the prayer chain, the Wolfpack prayer chain. And she's done an amazing job of assembling the prayers. And we need to follow up with some of these folks to find out, how is it going, right? Has it been answered? Is it something that maybe somebody died, right? Maybe that's what it was about. Should it be, instead of, should we at least know that that person has passed away and now we can pray for the repose of their soul? Like things like that, but we follow up on it. And we have our admins over there with Paleocrat Diaries, and they're doing, praying the hours of the Little Office of the Blessed Virgin Mary, praying a chaplet, I think, yesterday. I think Haley did a chaplet yesterday. Doing, people have done rosaries. There's been numerous people who've done rosaries. I've done different chaplets, and we also did a little bit on the total consecration. So some of the readings and stuff, and we record them, so you can go back and listen. You don't have to be there live. It's a live event, so you can go in, and it's like a Skype call. Okay, so you're all in there and everybody's praying together, but if you don't make it, or if you don't make it to the book club, it's all saved. It's all saved. So as I said, what are you thinking not going? And it's free. It's free. This isn't behind a paywall. Okay, so you got to go over there right now. Join, and especially today, because today we have 150. We have 150, and people can say that's small, and you know what? That's okay. That's okay. In fact, somebody reminded me that there will come a time when it's not. And that we'll all lament a little bit, right? It's like a blessing and a curse a little bit. It's one of those bittersweet things in life. That it's exciting to the show's getting more traction, that more people are tuning in and things like that. But there's something really awesome about having a tight-knit group of people. It's something really cool about that. Where you kind of, it's like Cheers. Like you really do know folks' names, right? You do. You walk in, you're like, yeah, I know that guy. I know that girl over here. Good morning, everybody. Hey, what's going on, buddy? And everybody's regulars and stuff. And so make sure to go and check that out. I'm really grateful. All right, we're going to move on. I want to show real quick. I have two things actually that I want to show. Okay, one of them I'll show the funny one first. Okay, so this is something actually following up with Telegram. I shared this over on Telegram. I was going to share the part 2, but there's a little bit of language because I'm quoting these were from like 2007. I'd made a bunch of apologetics videos, right? Made a bunch of them on YouTube. There wasn't many people doing that. So, I mean, if you're out there putting yourself out, and atheists are coming out of the woodwork. And so they were really vulgar. Like, there wasn't much argument there. It was really just calling you stupid, you're dumb, you need to study, dropping F-bombs left and right and stuff like that. Very inappropriate. But I decided to make these videos and have a little fun. But this is the kind of thing that we do on top of all of it, just to have fun. So this is a short one. And then after that, I'm going to show you the clip. Hopefully David Gray comes in by that point. I'm hoping he does, okay? I can't promise. I don't know. Maybe he's a busy guy right now. He's a busy dude. Right? Same thing with the folks over at Old-Fashioned Catholics, right? And hopefully that we can get in touch with them as well. I'll be talking to the host of that, the channel, Nick. I'll be talking with him later this afternoon. But before we do that, here's this fun video from 2007 called Atheists Take It on the Chin. So enjoy.
Yep. This is a video response to Paleocrat. He says things like we need to account for the preconditions necessary for knowledge before we talk about evidence, but that's just stupid.
Yeah, I willingly grant that the atheistic worldview can't account for any of this stuff, but I think two things. I think one, we don't really have to, and like two, miracles totally pose a problem for you or something.
Somehow, out of nothing, everything came. Somehow, out of nothing, all the uniformity that we've got came. And, kind of a miracle.
That guy, always talking about worldviews and presuppositions.
What are the odds of that? Pretty outstanding. Pretty miraculous, really.
That's ridiculous. I don't mind begging a couple really important questions. Doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, so like basically I don't feel like I have to actually answer any of your arguments. I just want to like basically say that I think that you are crazy or something.
I don't understand why he wants us to have to explain how we can explain stuff.
Because obviously, even though we can't account for this, we do it. Sure, we can't account for knowledge or anything, but come on, we do it.
I don't understand why we can't beg the question. I don't understand why we can't just ignore this whole worldview thing.
And there's people in the comments that are wondering, what's this? What's going on right now? I gave an intro to it. It's an old video from 2007 in response to a bunch of atheist comments under my apologetics videos. So I was quoting, a little liberty was taken on a couple of them, but I was trying to impersonate them the best I could. They really look like that. But that's the kind of stuff that they were saying. It's okay that we beg that question. It's only how we, explaining how we can explain anything at all. That's not a big deal, is it? And so, yeah, it was having fun and saying that sometimes over at the Wolfpack Chat, and by sometimes, basically all the time, we're having a lot of fun over there. We're having a lot of fun posting silly videos, having a great time, but it's connected, of course, to the prayer chat, to the book club, and to the resource center, right? So we got a resource channel. We got a prayer channel, prayer chain that collects all those and keeps track of those so that everybody can pray along. And I'm glad that people are. They let us know. People even jump in. They do a prayer right there. You can do an audio prayer. You can do a video prayer. You can do whatever you want right there. And people can know. They can pray along right there with you. If you do a rosary, do an audio of that. Make a video of it and post it. It doesn't matter. People can pray with you as they're driving or whatever. So it's just an awesome thing. It's just an awesome, awesome thing. So really grateful for all of you. All right. Now, I've heard, I don't want to keep him forever. But I read in here that David Gray's in here. Okay, David Gray. Okay, you better let me know you're there, buddy. Let me know you're there. Well, you know what? It's too late. You better be there, dude. You better be there because you're making a cameo appearance on my show. You're making a cameo appearance right here, bud. So I hope you enjoy it. This right here is let me see where it is. Old Fashioned Catholics right there. All righty. So let's go ahead. We're going to play this. It's a real quick thing. It was really cool. And Hallelujah, the moderator in here right now, she was on the show. And you'll see her as well as Anthony. Anthony, in the comments, Anthony Rodriguez, he is the big dog over as an admin over there. He was the very first person I ever took on board on Team Paleocrat over there on Telegram. He's the first person, and he's tried and true, right? He's faithful, faithful, and more. He's a friend, and so I'm really glad to have him here. So all right, yeah, I don't think he probably he maybe just left. I don't think so, man. Kyle Marks. You can't be so drab, Kyle Marks. There he is. You're here. You're ready. Okay, here we go. We're gonna rock this out. I'm not gonna take any more of your time. I know you're a busy man. I respect you, bud. So here we go. Here's a clip I made from the segment there on Old Fashioned Catholics, moments before I arrived. Here you go.
Yeah, he's man, he gets all sorts of flack from everybody, left and right.
Anthony
Oh,
said he's
Anthony.
gonna know
See,
that.
Anthony knows. Anthony's in with me. So there is a guy you guys should check out, Jeremiah Bannister. David knows who this is.
The Paleocrat Diaries guy.
Yes, he's on Meaning of Catholic. You guys, Nick, you would probably find him hilarious.
I'm gonna look him up.
But he's on Meaning of Catholic. He just did a Enthusiasm series a little while ago, doing another series on the secular age right now. It's really good. And on Father Lasance.
What does he do? I never really. I was gonna have him on one of either my radio show or my podcast. I really don't understand what he does or what he's talking about, but he's like so entertaining. I mean, that's why. If you see me in a live stream, over there, Haley, it's just because I just think he's funny and he has like this personality. But I have no idea what he's talking about whatsoever.
So he's usually reading from a book. So right now he's reading Father Lasance, and he's going through like how to be a holy man and woman.
David,
So-
that's pretty good if a guy just reading a book on a live stream. can
That's what I was gonna
capture your
say.
Imagination. That's impressive.
Right. So Jeremiah, he's sitting there, he's reading these texts, and then he turns to the camera and he comments on them and he laughs or says something profound. He goes back and reads some more. It's like whole, and he has the whole background. He has the beard or whatever. I mean, he's just a character. It's really interesting.
And if you want your like socks rocked, check out his conversion story. It's crazy. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So crazy.
He sent it to me.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. I'll have to check them out. Thanks for sharing that.
No problem.
Thank you, Haley.
You gotta do it. You got to do it. Check out your boy, right? Every single Monday, right here, 11-ish to 1-ish on Reason and Theology. And of course, 11 to 1 over Wednesdays and Fridays at Meaning of Catholic. All right. There's that sound. You better have your coffee ready. And not just your coffee, you better have your straw. Why? Because we take it straight to the dome. Straight to the dome. As BM in the comment section has informed everyone in the world, scientific literature out there has declared that if you drink coffee through a straw, it bypasses the blood-brain barrier and you go full Paleocrat mode. Yeah, it's true. Ask her about it. She definitely will agree. But you gotta have it ready because we are entering the octagon of history. We are going to take a look to have kind of a bird's eye view of how we got where we are right now. What led to that, right? How did we get to this place where in the past, it was crazy town, cuckoo pant nonsense, not to believe in God or a God or multiple gods. But no matter what, it was theistic to this place now where it's really difficult to believe, where it's easy to doubt, right? Where you're not sure entirely of where you stand on various topics, where you may look at yourself in the mirror and say, how did I get to that place? How did I get to who I am now, where back in the 90s or back in the early 2000s, I may have believed certain things, and yet I don't anymore? What happened to me? You've been infected. You've been infected. It was a slow game. It took hundreds of years, in fact, for this to happen. And it zigzagged back and forth, and it didn't have to be this way. In fact, that should be a relief, because if it didn't have to be this way, it doesn't have to be that way now, and it doesn't have to be that way in the future. And we stand firm, don't we? We stand firm. We take a knee for Jesus Christ every single day. We proclaim his social kingship over all things, heaven and earth, everything, okay? We do this every single day. Gotta crank that up. Gotta get louder. Gotta get louder! We take a knee for Christ the King, resolving to never give up, to keep on smiling, and to remember that we too one day shall die. So we gotta dream big. We gotta give it everything we got while we're alive, to discern, to try to seek God on our vocation. And once we have attained this, once we realize this, to embrace it with gusto, and to give everything we've got. Because all of creation has been crying out for folks like me and you for a long time. Yeah, love you guys. By the way, do not encourage Kyle Marx and Enslaved by Truth. No. Enslaved by Truth, like, go get him, Kyle. No, do not go get him, Kyle. That's not good. It is not good, Kyle. Don't come get me. All right, real quick, over in the comments, and then we're on like Donkey Kong. Okay. First of all, very, very, very glad. Up here, look at this. Boom, 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 boom. You know, if you're part of the wolf pack, if this is something you love, oh, I almost forgot. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Oh, look at the balloons. Look at those balloons up there. 150 boys and girls. 150. I will drink to that. 150. Isn't that cool? Look at those balloons. They're moving around. They're moving around. You know, I was kind of excited because check this out. Watch. Look at that. I got my wolf, right? My wolf is in there still. Don't worry. Don't worry. But today, 150. We are celebrating, and afterward, I've got these. I've got hush puppies in a plastic baggie. It's like it's from a drug dealer or something. It's like you go on the street and the guy at the trench goes like, "Hey man, you want to buy some hush puppies?" You're like, I guess, yeah, of course. Why wouldn't I want to buy any hush puppies? I mean, give me a break. Everybody would buy hush puppies. Maybe not from you. And he's like, these are good. And you're like, authentic? Better than Long John Silver's. Give them to me now. Better than Long John Silver's. I need them, man. Oh, I need them. I have food. I got pizza. I've got this CBS here, this Imperial Stout brewed with chocolate and coffee, aged in maple syrup bourbon barrels. It's so good. I'll even break out. I already have. Check this out. I already broke out my the White Horse Tavern. Broke out my glass there. Super psyched about that. So we're gonna have a party. So if you want to join that party and that get together, I'll do a live chat, and we'll crank up the old camera for the live chat, and just all get together and just have a good time and celebrate the fact that we have made it to 150, because we're excited about that. We're pumped about it. And look, people are like, that's only 150. And you're like, man, that's 150 people with like 700 to 800 comments on that chat every day. It is, in my opinion, the most engaged audience, the most engaged group of crazy maniacs for any show in the Stratosphere. I mean, these people, just bonker town. They don't even sleep. I'm like, please go to bed. I want to get one of those images, with the Native American guy and stuff that says like that the channel is off for the night and everything. Back in the olden days when you had those rabbit ears on your TV and stuff. I want to go ahead and have that. So I want to thank everybody in here. Everybody in here. Yes, Reverend. Yes, Joe Pascala. Joe, and yes, by the way, you asked if this is associated with reason and theology. Yes, it most certainly is. Yes, it most, and I am greatly indebted to Michael Lofton. Michael Lofton is a really cool dude, right? He's a really cool guy, and more, he's important. He's somebody that I'm very grateful, and it's tragic, isn't it? Isn't it tragic how he can do such amazing videos, and he does all the time. He's got like this crazy habit of just blowing people's minds 24/7. So he's got these amazing videos that come out, and everybody's scrambling over. A bunch of ambulance chasers. They're over there watching the latest freaky news, right? Something to do with somebody, going potty in their pants and whatnot around the Pope. And it's like, oh, that's got 12,000 viewers live. Oh, great. How many does this one have with the Secretary of Padre Pio? Oh, it's got, a couple hundred or whatever live views. And it's mind-blowing. It's tragic. It's unfortunate. But it's also one of the reasons why I'm especially glad that he keeps on keeping on. It's one of the reasons why I'm so glad to be part of this endeavor. Because sometimes, it's one of those signs and symptoms, isn't it? That the world is in a particularly heinous place. That even the faithful are led into this crazy world of scandal and sensationalism, and it's tragic. It's unfortunate. I don't know any saint in the world that was like in their advisements, they're like, and the one advisement I give is that you should be on Twitter 24/7 and you should talk about doo-doo stories and stuff. No. Right? He's talking about saintly stuff. He's talking about things that actually matter. And it's one of the signs and symptoms that even those who believe that they are traditional, that they're super faithful, that they're wrapped up in this modern world. They're wrapped up in the malaise. They're wrapped up in the secular age, and they don't even realize it sometimes. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about that. Okay? So I want to thank everybody for being part of that. My first time here, how to access the Wolf Pack and prayer section. I hope that people provided links to that. Hallelujah, if you could please provide links to the Reverend, the good Reverend. Make sure to do that so that he can join. I mean, we definitely want we definitely want folks like that. We want everybody. We want everybody. But it'd be nice to have a priest, right? Yeah, Kyle, wrong guy, Paleocrat. You unnuanced, deplorable. Yeah, right. Yeah, right, man. Yeah, right. I got your number, dude. I'm on to you, buddy boy. I'm on to you, man. I'm on your heels, dude. Yeah. All right. Yeah. So very grateful for everybody. Nice to see you in the comments here, Andrea. Very, very happy to see you there. And yes, of course, Phil's a regular there over at the Wolfpack chat. Very glad to see him as well. All right. So, okay, we're going to move on. Let's see here. Let me get this window capture off here. Boom. Boink. All right. Now, I decided to do something, right, a little bit different. I've actually got my book out, right? I've got my book out. And this is the book. And I need to ask Michael if there's any way that he can put a link in the description to the books. Because, I'm talking about them. And people, typically when they, it was a lot of people that bought the Enthusiasm book, right? Enthusiasm, a chapter in the history of religion by Ronald Knox. We call it the yellow pill. We showed a video last time. I was worried, because we have a song in there from John Michael Talbot. And I'm like, we're gonna get a cease and desist letter from old John Michael Talbot. And it's gonna be like, oh, I didn't mean to use your music without your permission. And so, it's one of those things. But people are getting yellow pilled. They're sitting there and they're saying, look, man, this book has changed my life. I began to see within myself just how enthusiastic I was and how the creative destruction of enthusiasm had left remnants and fragments even within me. And it wasn't until I began following that series, and that entire series, we're actually putting together something where people are going to be able to just go to Meaning of Catholic on the website, and it will have a list that each one will be hyperlinked, so you can go straight to the beginning and skip right over all of the introductions, because we do a lot of that. We do a lot of just fun stuff at the beginning and things like that. First half an hour of the show, sometimes more, is that. And so this will skip right over and go directly into each presentation, covers a whole bunch of really great stuff. That will be made available at meaningofcatholic.com. It'll probably be shared as well over at 1 Peter 5. I'm hoping, right? Fingers crossed. And so, in Father Lassance, a lot of people have bought the books by Father Lassance that I'm talking about right now, the guides or manuals for young men and young women. And I'm making them applicable across the board, right? And so we're going through, not chapter by chapter with that one, right? We're kind of focusing on different ones. Eventually, over at Meaning Catholic, once I'm done with that, we're going to move on to talking about cults, denominations, still sticking with the basic theme of enthusiasm, but picking up where Ronald Knox left off, because he actually left off quite a ways back, okay, early 1900s at the latest. And so there's been a lot that's gone on since then. A lot of enthusiasm. It's spread like wildfire. I mean, it's viral at this point. It's pretty bad. It's all over the place. Even secular people at this point, right, have been infected by the virus. And so even them, like, they've become this cultic, enthusiastic mindset and stuff. And it's just bizarro world. And that's why we're living in clown world, to be quite frank. It's one of the reasons why, right? I don't want to make it a magic bullet. I don't want to say that's the single thing. You just got to look through the lens of Ronald Knox. Nope, not the case. But it's definitely one of those things that helps us to see a little better. Maybe part of a bifocal, okay? And this book here, okay? This book here, admittedly, this one was written by a Protestant professor at Calvin College. He's a philosophy professor. And I've had to, and I told people that just like with Knox, just like with Lassance, there'll be times where I disagree. And leave you to decide. To say, look, do you think that my criticism's right or wrong? Do you think that their analysis is more correct than where I'm coming from? And that's okay. That's how I learn too. Right? We're in this together. And so, but this is one of those books, and it's based on this one. You'll understand really quickly why I went. Look, let's see. I'll show you. That's how thin this book is, right? Not very large compared to this book. Yeah, look at this. Yeah, gigantic. It's like almost, 650 pages or whatever. Super, super, super huge. But this one here, How Not to Be Secular. Right? How Not to Be Secular. And I start off, I didn't want to just post everything, right? Because I was just, scrolling through different pages. but I want people to buy the book too. And I don't want to offend anybody that I'm reviewing their stuff and talking about their stuff. I hope that people buy these books. I hope that it helps promote what they're doing because I believe that they're valuable. I believe that they're insightful enough that I'm willing to dedicate an enormous amount of time to the endeavor of diving deep into these matters. Okay, and so if you're interested in that, this is a very good book. Okay, and of course, James K.A. Smith, professor of philosophy at Calvin College, where he also holds the Biker Chair in Applied Reformed Theology and Worldview. Somebody on in a comment section was like, biker, spelled, by the way, B-Y-K-E-R, because I made a joke saying, that he's wearing like a biker vest and stuff, a leather vest, and he's got patches all over, and it's like a Harley seat, right, kind of thing. And I made a joke about it, like, no, that's actually a person who was a high-profile person, a president over at Calvin. I'm like, come on. Give me a break. Give me a break, man. Oh, obviously he's not wearing a biker vest. Well, I mean, I don't know if obviously, but yeah, obviously. He's not wearing a biker vest, homie. Weirdo. Man, a bunch of weirdos. But okay, so Taylor's method, okay? Taylor's method in this, and this is one of those things, it's why I named this episode Truth Without Narrative is Dead. And that's not to say the truth without a story, right? That we can speak about truth in a way that we can say, no, this is true regardless of the other details connected to it. But people, we're kind of these narrative engines. We're always looking for narrative all the time. It's one of the reasons why the Gospels are so powerful. Even the style that it was written in, the genre that it was written in. Okay, and is it Brent Piter? How do you pronounce his name? Yeah, he fantastic book, right, on the reliability of the Gospels. And in there he talks about the genre of the Gospels and why they read that way. Why do they flow that way? Because they're telling a story. Right? And there's something profound to this idea of the greatest story ever told. So Taylor's method, right? Taylor's response to these questions is to tell a story. The question about the secular age, how did we get here? Because the world tells a story too. They tell a subtraction story, one that says, well, we stopped believing in miracles and we stopped believing in that, and the default setting that was left, the bare bone thing that was left, the skeletal structure, that is secularism. Incorrect. So he says this, the narrative is not an optional extra, he insists, which is, quote, why I believe I have to tell a story here. But the question is, of course, why? First, he needs to offer a story to counter the subtraction stories of secularization theory, right? These tales, yeah, okay, I got this coming up here. So these tales of enlightenment and progress and maturation that see the emergence of modernity and the secular as shucking the detritus of belief and superstition. So he says, the world's presenting a story, and people are gobbling up the story. And we don't have a story of our own that says, how did we land in this place? Other than simply saying, well, it's sin. Well, okay, but how? It's more complex than that. I know somebody who said, well, it's Protestantism. Protestantism's what did it. But it's not just taking away what's there. It's saying what kind of world, what kind of imaginary world, when we look out at things and we see life around us, what has transpired that makes certain beliefs that were formerly unbelievable, right? Totally taboo, unacceptable, right? Condemnable, maybe even to death, that now those are not only reasonable things to believe in, but more than that they may be more reasonable than not, and that it's difficult, in fact, to advance the narrative that would involve, for example, miracles. That would involve some kind of revelation, that we learn things not simply through the senses, but there's a way, an immediacy of how we learn some things through revelation, that things have been revealed, that mysteries, these matters, and not mysteries in the sense, that, well, we don't know yet, because unbelievers have an answer to that, don't they? They say, well, you bring up something that they don't have an answer for. And they say, they automatically say, well, science is going to be able to one day answer that. And they've got this litany of stories that they're able to tell as to how that has happened in different ways throughout time. But right here, these subtraction stories, we believe in right, once upon a time, this is the way it works, right? Once upon a time, as these subtraction stories rehearse it, we believed in sprites and fairies and gods and demons. But as we became rational, and especially as we marshaled naturalist explanations for what we used to attribute to spirits and forces, the world became progressively disenchanted. How many times have you heard that? How many times have you heard that? The idea, that we used to believe, I don't believe in those fairy tales anymore. People used to believe in that. People used to believe in fairies and elves and junk, ogres and such. I don't believe in that anymore. I've matured. I've flipped that tassel over to the other side of my cap. They pulled a David Bazan. You want to hear music? We talked about music in the last one. How music, a lot of modern music, betrays a kind of malaise. And one of those that's mentioned in the book frequently is Death Cab for Cutie. You could add to that, of course, David Bazan or Pedro the Lion. I think it's another one, right? That is this kind of malaise, right? Bright Eyes. Bright Eyes would be another one. Well, any emo band. Any emo band, maybe. But the thing is, they say we progressively became disenchanted. Religion and belief withered with scientific exorcism of superstition. I'm not superstitious anymore. I don't believe in those ghosts. I don't believe in that stuff. That stuff's for kiddies. That stuff's for, children's stories, fairy tales. Keep that in Grimm, buddy. Don't be forcing that on my kids. You hear that all the time. On Taylor's account, the force of such subtraction stories is as much in their narrative power as in their ability to account for the data, so to speak, right? There's a sense of plot. There's a cast of characters with heroes. Remember Cosmos? And not the Carl Sagan version, the newer one. Right? That was put together in a way. They had heroes, they had bad guys, they had cartoons, right? Animations that went with it, everything else. It was told as a narrative. It was told as a story. And in fact, it had a long, long time ago in a place far away. It had that. In fact, it was where Neil deGrasse Tyson was on a calendar. He's walking on a calendar, and the calendar gets bigger and bigger and bigger, accounting for all of the time that worldview accounts for. And it got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and he's this small little speck on it, this meaningless thing. That story conveys stuff, even the symbol of that, kind of like the little blue speck. That informs the person who embraces that narrative. That informs them in a way that there's a price tag to that. It's not a free lunch to believe such things. Sense of plot, cast of characters, Galileo and villains, Cardinal Bellarmine. So if you're going to counter subtraction stories, it's not enough to offer rival evidence and data. That's been my argument from the get-go. In fact, that's been my argument for a long time, even journalistically. That journalistically, I have a podcast over at my Paleocrat YouTube channel. I don't use it very often, but I've posted stuff there before, including podcasts about the myth of neutrality. And I talk about the way that, there's kind of this myth about hard news. And the hard news is just the facts, sir. I just want the facts. I'm just taking down quotes, both sides of the story. And there's this mythos, right, about the whole enterprise. Kind of Clark Kent thing. They're just out there to find the truth. They're out there to find the bad guys. No, they're not. I've worked in that business. I can tell you right now, that is in fact phony baloney. Phony baloney. Phony baloney sauce, big time. So if you want to know more about that, but the idea is that it's more than just simply saying, well, look, here's my data. It's one of the reasons why the argument over what do we call it? Post-truth, right? The alternative facts. That's one of those things, because when people present their arguments, they present normally an assortment of facts that help to construct a story for them. And it helps to construct a narrative for them. They piece it together like a puzzle. And they will leave some out. And journalists do it all the time, not only because of character limits and stuff like that. I mean, you have a restraint of the page, for example, right? You have the restraint of readers' attention spans. And so you're not going to be able to just pour in every single bit of data that you've got. You have to be selective about that. And that's where you start to see the bias of people. Even if they say, I want to have both sides of the debate, that's a phony idea. There's more than two sides of any given debate. I know a lot of third-party candidates that would agree with me on that and say, wait a second. I know a lot of people on the left and on the right in America. We have this easy heuristic that says, oh, left and right. That's an easy way to look at it. But each side of that is a spectrum. Just pointing out the difference between a paleoconservative and a libertarian or a neoliberal and a progressive leftist. And you can see them even in their institutional frameworks. So already I've just labeled four. I haven't even mentioned neoconservatism, anarcho-syndicalism. We could go on and on and on. And then there's shades of each one. So there's more than two sides. So even that idea, you already are still reinforcing a certain narrative, and one, in fact, that you take for granted. It's just part of who you are. You were born maybe into it. Maybe when you went to school, that was already the narrative that prevailed. And so Taylor not only has to tack back and forth between the analytical and the historical, he has to offer the history as a story, as a counter-narrative. One needs to read A Secular Age almost like a novel, or at least absorb it as a story. And I don't know how I forgot this. My mega hot half Korean beauty queen wife, I hope she's watching this because your boy here, Big Papa, needs something to drink that has not got caffeine in it or alcohol. My mouth is getting dry. I'm like, I need it. Akin to Alistair McIntyre and Christian Smith, Taylor seems to recognize that we are narrative animals. We define who we are and what we ought to do on the basis of what story we see ourselves in. Okay? Our understanding of ourselves and where we stand is partly defined by our sense of having come to where we are, or of having overcome a previous condition. That's the idea. This kind of nonsensical breakdown that says, well, that's antiquity, right? That's medieval. And this right here is modern, right? This is the new thing, right? We're good, and you're gonna get into some weird mixes with that. That's where you start to get that evolutionary image where you've got the great ape that develops into a different thing, and all of a sudden it's like slowly developing into a full-blown human. That right there is a story. That's a story. Now they have what they would say is data to back that up. But that's a story, and that informs the person that they have reached this pinnacle. Unless, of course, they're going to become transhuman. The next. Oh yes, I love you, baby. Man, I love her. Yeah, I do. I'm so hooked up, guys. Oh, and she got me a straw. Yes. Yeah. So. The thing is, it informs the person who embraces that image that tells a story. It informs them of this idea, and it provides a kind of a feeling, a sense of security that they are not primitive anymore, that they're civilized, that they have evolved to this great place. And in fact, maybe the only place beyond this, they're going to start looking like robots. You're going to have RoboCop, right? They're going to upload their brain to the cloud. And that's kind of where it is next. So, like, it goes to the man, and the next thing is RoboCop. You know? Or Johnny Five from Short Circuit. The next one is like, I'm Johnny Five. You know, like, I guess, yeah, they uploaded their brain to that thing, I guess. That's the new evolution. It's the new one, guys. And so the thing is, but it tells a story, and it informs the person. That's the point. While the goal is to understand the present, this requires a long detour through our past. That's one of those things. That's one of those things that one of those things where that was what drove me in enthusiasm in my series on Ronald Knox's book, his magnum opus, the classic Enthusiasm, was to say, how did we get here? We have to understand the past to understand the present. And if we don't understand ourselves in the present, and if we don't understand the past, then there's no way that it'd be a stroke of the most extraordinary luck if we actually did something good for the future. It'd be accidental to a degree. It wouldn't be because of some scheme or plan. It just might work out that way. And you're like, oh, look at that force of luck. And the thing is, the narrative that's presented to most secular people, that's in fact how it plays out, which is why they're so present-oriented and why they're constantly redefining the past in light of their notions of the present. That's why. If we're going to make sense of the muddled present, we need to get close to the ground and explore all kinds of contingent twists and turns that are operative in the background of our present. Again, isn't that right? Anyone who's followed that series on enthusiasm, isn't that an echo of what we talked about right there? That you have to understand that. You have to get close to the ground and explore all of the contingent twists and turns throughout history. That ebb and flow of people being rigorous and people being lax. But there's a problem, right? So often people think that secular is neutral, right? It's just rational. It's just a-religious. How often have you heard people say, "Well, I'm not a stamp collector." Saying that atheism is a religion is like saying that not collecting stamps is a hobby. How many times have you heard that? They take it as a neutral position. Some of the more extreme atheist people would say that atheism is the default position of every kid who comes into the world. Which by itself, already out of the gate, they are rejecting the idea that we're hardwired in any way. So that's not even neutral. It's a sneaky thing that they've done. They're infusing the consequences of their presuppositional network. They're saying, well, I assume this is the case. Therefore, I'm going to view reality through the lens of that worldview. And then they call this neutral. I'm just seeing clearly. That's all it is. I'm just not blinded by propaganda. I'm not blinded by all that dogmatic nonsense. Indoctrination. But they say it's just our religious. It's just, a rational, neutral space. It's what's left over when we throw off superstition and ritual and belief in the gods. This is all that's left over. But the secular is not just unbelief. It's not just a lack of specifically religious belief. This is a quote. Instead, to quote here, the emergence of the secular is also bound up with the production of a new option, the possibility of exclusive humanism as a viable social imaginary, a way of constructing meaning and significance without any reference to the divine or transcendence. So being able to say, look, I don't need to have reference to the divine to come up with a system of law and order. I don't need reference to the divine or to the transcendent to have a sense of meaning, purpose, right and wrong, good and evil. I don't need that. And they believe that they can find that within what we are calling an immanent frame. Okay, so their framework for all those things, the framework for where they find the source of all things is completely immanent. But it wasn't enough for us to stop believing in the gods. We also had to be able to imagine significance within an immanent frame, to imagine modes of meaning that did not depend on transcendence. So you couldn't just say, can you imagine, by the way, can you imagine being in a place where if you stop believing in God, even as an experiment, to say, I'm going to try my hardest to just say, I'm not going to believe right now. I'm going to try to imagine a world where God does not in fact exist, that would bring extraordinary amounts of despair if it was not accompanied by an alternative. And people will provide that, by the way, because everything inside of them is screaming for it. The discomfort that comes. We don't want discomfort. It's one of the reasons why we're constantly on our phones all the time. that discomfort that accompanies boredom, not having something to do. They start getting fidgety. Studies have been done where you take people's phones in classes and you say that you're going to put them in a specific spot just for them. Nobody can touch the phones during the class. That if they hook them up to anything, they'll find within a very short period of time, less than 10 minutes, I believe, that they are experiencing extraordinary amounts of anxiety. And so they're going to find something to figure this out, even if it's garbage. And we already know what it is, don't we? Right? They exchange the truth of God for a lie. We know that. We're told that in Scripture. But what do? Do they just suppress the truth? Is that all it is? No, they exchange the truth of God for a lie. It doesn't just say they suppress the truth and become neutral. No, they end up worshiping the creature. They worship the created order. They exchange otherwise natural relationships with unnatural relationships. Idolatry, perversion, various disorders. This is why subtraction stories will always fall short. The secular is not simply a remainder, it's a sum. Created by addition, a product of intellectual multiplication. David asks, who are the gatekeepers? In the comments, David says, who are the gatekeepers of today? By the way, if you want to direct a comment at me, I should have said, I'm so sorry, everybody. I should have said this earlier, right? I'm truly sorry. Let me see if I can get this actually a little zoomed up here. Let me see if I can zoom it up a little bit. Okay. So the thing is that, actually, let me go back to this. No! Yeah, no, I did not want to do that. If you would like to connect with me, okay, and you want to connect and ask a question specifically for me, make sure to do as Hallelujah does. Let me go ahead and put that up here real quick. See that? See how it's got at Paleocrat? Okay, so I'm signed in right now at Paleocrat. If you mention me, I'll be able to go through that later. Otherwise, it's just going to be a bunch of words on a screen. I'm going to have to try to read every single one. I can't do that. That's hard. And you're going to be going through a lot of it, like, 30 seconds of just silence. And no, don't want to do it. So if you've asked a question and I have not addressed that question, which I have not yet, and you want me to address it at the end of the show, make sure to go ahead and just mention me right now, repeat the question, put that little @ symbol with Paleocrat, and that will notify me in that thread, so you can see. Let me see if there's more. Right, there's another one, right? So there may be a whole bunch of comments in there, a whole bunch of questions, not entirely sure. Okay? And so make sure if you have a question or a comment like that and you want me to read it on air, make sure to go ahead and put at Paleocrat with that, and I will do my best, do my absolute best to be able to address that. So okay, but the idea, of course, is that it took intellectual multiplication, okay? That's what it took. You had to multiply, and they did. Well, let's see here. Okay, so the thing is, it doesn't mean that everyone believes the same thing. That's another thing we have to pay attention to. That far from it. In fact, crucial to Taylor's account is the recognition of all kinds of competing visions of Christianity. Because some people would complain, and somebody actually did this already, somebody, an open and honest enthusiast, somebody who actually wears it on their sleeve, said, yes, I am an enthusiast. I've read Knox's book. I'm not impressed. Because he didn't take into consideration my particular enthusiasm. He wasn't recognizing the underlying overlapping assumptions that enthusiasts have. And it was easy to predict a mile away. I mean, the guy's talking to me. I'm like, wow, this is not very original. No offense to you. But the thing is that one of the criticisms as well, there was a diversity amongst Christianities. And I'm like, I know. That's literally page 1 of Enthusiasm. So in my series on it, that's right out of the beginning. The whole book is based on that. So we have to just get that out of the way, that there were multiple different views of not just Christianity, but of religion. His main focus is in the West because of the impact that the West has had right, for a very, very, very long time. In fact, over the whole world, the net that it casts over the whole world and the way that it influences it. But he says, what were those features of the background or imaginary of medieval society that occurred, that occluded these imaginative possibilities? If we can identify those features of the medieval society social imaginary, we will have located the obstacles of unbelief. That to me is a profound statement. If we can see what the obstacles of unbelief were, if we can do that, right? What was it that the person in medieval times, what was it within their social imaginary that made it really hard to even imagine that they would ever become an unbeliever? What was it? He says, we will have located the obstacles of unbelief. Those are obstacles we need to resurrect again. I'm dead serious about it. Because it didn't have to be that way, and it doesn't have to be that way now. That's one of the fatalistic things that they say in the book, is they kind of treat it with this Hegelian dialectic that says that it's almost like the invisible hand working through the dialectic that's causing the world to irreversibly change and to embrace things and say, well, I know we've lived that way before, so it's a reasonable expectation. And I say, that's not how the Greeks viewed human sacrifice. It's not. That's why they were ashamed of it later on. You can see, is it Elizabeth Hamilton? Talk in the book Mythology, talking about how you can see the fragments of those places in those stories, in those myths, where there used to be, in fact, human sacrifice. But they became ashamed. Same thing with the promiscuity of the gods. And you go, just because they lived that way before doesn't necessarily mean that they want to go back. Maybe they could, right? Maybe they could. Number one, the natural world was constituted as a cosmos that functioned semiotically as a sign that pointed beyond itself to what was more than nature. Okay, so that's one thing. Okay, so the idea, and I want people to really think about this for real, right? Is that if you think about it, you say, okay, the natural world, right? When you look outside, the way that it was set up to the mind of people at the time, right? That it functioned semiotically as a sign that pointed beyond itself. So it was a symbol, right? There's this thing about it that it's something bigger and transcendent even from it. It reflected something maybe even divine to what was more than nature. Society itself was understood as something grounded in a higher reality. We see this oftentimes in the way the social magisterium of the church when talking about the majesty of the state. And so you've got this thing where you say, okay, so they believe that it reflects heaven. It's kind of like the tabernacle, right? It's kind of like a temple that says, look, this is what I saw in heaven. This is what's going to be on earth. It's according to these particular dimensions. And in fact, the reflection, if you had an image that had, let's say, and I've seen this before, I wish I had it with me now, but an image that takes blurry things that makes it look like this remarkable palace, right? So the background in real life is a little bit blurry, but the way that it reflects is different than what you're seeing. It's kind of a cool technique, right? And so the thing is that sometimes the idea was that what you're seeing in the reflection, right? That it was more tangible, maybe, right? That's what you're in, but it's simply that. It's just a reflection of something that's ultimate real beyond that. So something that the form of it is more real than what we call real. That is the source of the real. That is the ultimate of the real. And so they believed that about objects even, about systems, about themselves and the world around them. And some people lived in an enchanted world. It was a world charged with presences that was open and vulnerable, not closed, and self-sufficient. I thought about it, right? I thought about it. And I thought, we see this with the Eucharist. In fact, he mentions this. Let me premise it off of what he talks about. He says, in the world constituted, atheism comes close to being inconceivable. So if you believe that the world is a reflection of things that are greater than itself, that the world is in fact maybe even shadow-like and compared with ultimate reality, and that these are supercharged in a way, that these even objects, and we see fragments of this even in our practices, like for example, blessing a rosary, miraculous medals. You know, how do you feel when someone tells you that they took a miraculous medal and they placed it under somebody's bed? You know, that they wanted that person, right? Or they gave that person, they had a priest bless it, and they gave it to that person. There's something that comes out in the way that they talk, that medal is not just a medal. And it's not just a symbol of something big, but it's almost as if the medal itself has a kind of enchantment to it. We're not disenchanted to the idea of it. We do that with the Eucharist all the time. The Eucharist is the supreme enchantment. You're looking at that and you're saying it's not just bread, it's not just wine. In fact, it's the body, blood, soul, and divinity of Jesus Christ. That right there shows that we still have that belief, but it's becoming smaller and smaller and smaller. And how many of you, and look, maybe, you know, I anticipate there's a lot of different views in the chat, but the idea that when you say that you want to get your rosary blessed, what does that mean to you? What do you believe happens to the rosary? What do you believe happens? What do you believe happens to the scapular? If you were to draw a picture, and that picture were to have, let's say, a kind of, you know, the way that you would view the reality of the situation if you were to do it through a picture, what would it look like? Would it just be beads in your hand? Or would it be like the Green Lantern, right? That you have kind of a glow around it, that object in the hand is not a normal lantern. It's not a normal power ring. There's something special about that it emanates a certain kind of energy, in fact. It's supercharged. What does it mean then if it's not? And if it is, and that is what you believe, how do you treat it differently? How do you set it apart from other ordinary objects? Do you? You know, and I'm just asking. I mean, I'm sincerely curious about this. To say, you know, that the idea, and somebody asked, is it a talisman? Like, no. The idea, like, what would it, and that's why I'm asking you, what do you think it would mean? We say this of the Eucharist. We say this of things that would be blessed, for example. What does that mean? I'm curious to know. Because now we have an idea, and it's why people, and you can hear the fragments of this, that there may be, in fact, objects. You should have your house blessed or your land blessed. That people can come in and do, and they can exercise your home. To do exorcism prayers over babies at baptism. These kinds of things that had an idea of the porousness that was between the supernatural and the natural. They had not yet reached that place of a Kantian divide. They hadn't reached that place where there was this philosophical notion within the social imaginary that what's up in heaven is so detached and so separated from what is within the phenomenal world that there's no interplay back and forth. There's no porous exchange happening. We say this with the Mass, don't we? That the Mass, in fact, is a representation of Calvary, and that there are angelic hosts all about. We see again the interplay of the transcendent and the interplay of the ordinary. In fact, brick and mortar, wood, glass. We see this. And so we see again, we have fragments of this, but to what degree have we been impacted in such a way that we often will look at these objects a little differently? We don't look at them much differently at all than anybody else in the world, any secularist in the world. I can hear myself in the background. Can you guys hear me in there? Can you hear me coming through the speakers? I'm like, why am I hearing myself? My wife's got a plan right now. Okay? Hold on a second. Our modern secular imaginary, removing obstacles of unbelief, right? The idea here isn't even so much to think about it. You know, and I don't want to get all touchy-feely on this. You know, anybody who knows me knows that, you know, yeah, I've got emotions and stuff like that. I'm kind of, you know, I have that kind of thing with me. You know, I would like to think of myself as a pretty decent balance of those things. That there's a little bit of an equilibrium. I'm not so stoic that I'm, you know, holding back the tears and stuff when something super sad happens. But at the same time, I'm not in hysterics. You know, I'm not little Lord Lundy. And so, you know, I'm not not boo-hooing, you know, over like the simplest things in the universe. But, you know, we were just talking yesterday about St. Teresa of Avila. And she was talking about the way that we know things and the way that you kind of, the phrase was that people are intuitive. That's a translator's device. But that the more literal translation is that certain people have a something, right? And you can almost imagine her doing quotation marks, that certain people have a kind of a something that allows them to understand this, and they kind of sense that. Not the physical feels, not like, ooh, did you feel the chills? Oh, the hair on the back of my head went up over that one. Yeah, that's a proof that it's true. Not that, but more intuitive. And what he's saying is try to feel the difference between that age and ours, to the extent that you can. And I would say try to remember the feel of what it was like to live during different times of your own life. The feel of an era of Hulkamania, you know, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, crisscrossing your pants, Nirvana, like that world of that Bon Jovi and stuff. That world had a much different feel than what we have now, at least to me when I think of it, and religion too. The way that I viewed it, the way that I viewed myself within it, the way that I viewed its role in our family. The way that I viewed its role in society. In fact, the role that it actually had in society was different. So it creates a different environment, not just for our thoughts, but for our day-to-day where we live and move and have our being within an environment. And he says, we're not really talking about what people think, right? It's more a matter of the difference between what we take for granted and what we don't give a second thought. What did you used to take for granted? Here's one that I hear a lot. You know, I remember, I'm 43. Okay, I'll be 44 in March. So I'm 43. And I remember believing very easily in the past, and most people believing very easily in the past, that there was a serious sin and disorder within exchanging natural relations with a man and a woman for a man with a man and a woman with a woman, etc. And that, in fact, it was just a given. And it wasn't, for most people, it wasn't like, well, I don't know, I'm kind of thinking maybe it's not. And in fact, it might be premised on the Bible that it was very easy to believe that, or the idea that it was easy to believe that things that happened in the book of Jonah actually happened. Right? That a plant grew over him and stuff, and he's weeping over there. That was an easy thing, or that animals, right, making their way to the ark, that wasn't necessarily hard for many, many people to believe. When they heard stories of saints, and they heard stories of like what would happen, and some of them sound, you know, wild. It's kind of hard. I've even struggled in the past where I hear certain stories. You know, let's say a statue of some kind, right? So you have a statue of some kind, you know, of Our Lady, and there's some turmoil going on politically, and a bunch of nuns use this particular image, and next thing you know, there's remarkable things happening all around. And it talks about how people were frightened and other people were, you know, running around and doing this and that. To so many modern ears, it's not as easy as it used to be to feel that that's true. Now, there's a relation to the way you think, but I think it's more than that. And so the target for this is, as Smith says, is our contemporary lived understanding, right? The way we naively take things to be, the way that we just assume them outright. And we do it all the time. We do it with presuppositions all the time. We do it with presuppositions that say, look, I have a great number of assumptions regarding the world that I'm in, the reasons for these various things, the rightness of those. We see that with conversations about slavery, for example. It wasn't that hard to believe before, many years ago. It wouldn't have been hard to believe that that's a perfectly fine thing. In fact, that it's a biblically sanctioned institution, even in the New Testament. And now it poses a serious crisis of faith for a lot of people. And not just because of the sanction that they see, but the idea that the church has changed. How about the idea just that the church is entirely trustworthy? How many people find that really difficult? It's no longer something that is so easy to believe anymore. They can imagine that it's not true, and they feel that it's not. But they don't even have to formulate it necessarily. And it really is the environment about them. It's like a kid being born, and once a kid's born, a kid's waddling around on the floor, crawling around on the floor. And as they're crawling around on the floor, they're seeing all of the different things that different people are doing, the way that they're talking, the expressions on their face. Now, some of it is programming, right? We're programmed in certain ways. It's why we can recognize certain problems. But a lot of it is mimicry. We're programmed, in fact, for that, for the mimicry. So you're saying, oh, man, I'm seeing this, and I'm mimicking this, and I'm mimicking that. I'm seeing people put the phone by their ear. How many kids have you seen where they take a car and they put the car by their ear and act like they're talking on the phone? Not because they've ever seen you put a car by your ear, but they're able to see that. But then by the time they get older, how many of them would remember doing that when they were 1.5 years old? How many would remember when they're 2? But that played into what developed over time as a social imaginary that was almost cooked in by the time that they became more cognizant of the situation, to recognize the variables that played into this, that gave them the understanding that they have. So they don't understand their place in the world, but it doesn't mean that there's not a just reason, or at least a reason for their believing that, or they're living that way. And it's this way with secularism, even insofar as it's affected people. The shift to a new background is not just true for exclusive humanists. Even believers believe in a way that also generally takes for granted this new background. We're all secular now. I brought this up, I think, last time. And tell me in the comments, tell me what you think about this, right? How many people, when you get sick, how often do you think your first thought has to do with something spiritual? Or if hearing me say that, your first thought is the name it, claim it people. If you talk, how many of you, your first thought is that it's possible that there is in fact a demonic influence? Or is it just purely physical? Do you think of it in terms of that? Is your default setting that it's purely physical? For most modern people, for most modern Christians, that's the case. And they don't understand how different that actually is. They take it for granted. I mean, since you were a kid, even before you were a kid, you were seeing commercials with doctors in it. Right? Your parents were, and their parents were. Even commercials with doctors selling smokes. Chesterfield, just like the doctor ordered. Yeah. That kind of a thing. So it's been around for a long time, but this notion that the very first thing is it's probably just physical. And someone could say now they have this kind of after-the-fact reasoning that says, oh, yeah, well, here's why I believe that. Here's why I think that, is because we should weed that out first and build our way up to more serious things. But your base idea of ourselves is primarily natural, not living souls. And it's one of the reasons, if I can dare to say this, it's one of the reasons, I believe, why it's difficult for people to believe that they can be healed. Because we no longer even believe that they can be cursed. We don't believe that people, in fact, could experience things that are negative spiritually. That we're not porous enough for that to happen, that it's only under the most extraordinary events, not even little smidges here and there. And because of that, there's a flip side to it. There's a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde to this equation. And you go, man, well, what is it? And you say, well, because they don't believe that they're porous enough to be cursed, it's difficult to believe that they're porous enough to be healed. It's difficult for them to imagine themselves as being porous enough to receive graces that are infused. It's more difficult. It's easier when you imagine your life more as a sponge than as a brick. But he makes the contention that we're all seculars now. Taylor lays out 5 elements of our modern secular 3, and we talked about the various views of secularism. Let's see if I can find that real quick. To talk about like what are the three versions of secularism: secularism 1, secularism 2, secularism 3. Let me see if I can find it, because it'd be good to go through that. Oh, hold on a second. Yeah, I got it. Because there's a little let's see. Okay. Right? Secular 3, right? When talking about what does that exactly mean? What exactly does that mean? It is this, right? A society is secular insofar as religious belief or belief in God is understood to be one option among others. So it's pluralism, right? They're saying, yeah, you can believe in religious belief, but the overarching notion is not religious. In fact, the overarching notion is neutrality. It's religious in its own way, but it's not infused the same way as a more robustly religious worldview. And so in that world, in secular 3, highlighting the contrast with pre-modern forms of life and the assumptions that attend them, what we'll notice is that each of these elements effectively rejects some aspect of the medieval imaginary that we noted above. So he's saying, look, there's 5 things in his mind. Those 5 things counteract the 5 things that were taken for granted, right? Or the various beliefs. I think it was 3 of them that were listed. The various beliefs that were taken for granted by the medieval mind. So you've got the idea that this is primarily a shift in the location of meaning. So we move from the world. We move from the world into the mind. Significance no longer inheres in things. Rather, meaning and significance are a property of minds who perceive meaning internally. And he uses, for example, relics and hosts. He says this: appreciate how this differs. And I mentioned this a moment ago, but hear how he describes this. Probably much smoother than me, right? much smoother than you, boy. As hard as I try. Appreciate how this differs from the enchanted pre-modern imaginary, where all kinds of non-human things mean and are loaded and charged with meaning independent of human perception or attribution. One of those things, for example, would be gold. That would have been one of those things, right? So there'd be a number of objects. Objects had a sense of meaning to them and value to them inherent in themselves, and not just something projected upon it by us. It was also assumed that power resided in these things. For example, relics. For example, hosts. To that degree, things can do stuff. As I said, do you have any friends? I have some friends that are this way still. I have some friends that are this way. That they'll sit there and they'll say, look, yeah, man, I had this stuff in my house, like a CD in my house. And it's not even that the CD has to be playing. It's the mere existence of the CD in the house that's bad. So next thing you know, they're doing a burning. Or they're doing, when I was in youth group, I put together, I was the youth pastor, we put together this kind of guillotine in a way, but it wasn't like a blade. It would come down and smash it. It was like a hammer. And so you'd put all that stuff down, and you'd say, yeah, we've got it lined up. We've got it lined up so that all the people would bring in all of their albums and stuff. We put it there and we smash it, not because of the potential harm it could do, but the mere existence of it there, and not because of the mere occasion of sin, but because there's something about the CD's existence being there at all. Because it can do stuff. A key concept to describe the pre-modern self is this. Prior to this disenchantment and the retreat of meaning into the interior mind, the human agent was seen as porous. That's what I was talking about, okay? Porosity means the self is essentially vulnerable. It's healable. Open to an outside, whether benevolent or malevolent. Open to blessing or curse. Possession or grace. This sense of vulnerability, according to Taylor, is one of the principal features which have gone with disenchantment. So the modern self, in contrast to the pre-modern, porous self is a buffered self. And he's going to use that phrase, buffered self. And when you look around, imagine yourself, it's insulated and isolated in its interiority, giving its own autonomous order to its life. How often do we hear the echoes of this, right? So it's kind of like, I was watching Doctor Who yesterday, right? And by the way, as an obvious digression, I've actually really enjoyed this new season. I've been critical of the last 2 seasons. I have not been happy at all with it, at all. I was furious at Chibnall. I thought it was terrible. This season, they've still got a little bit of propaganda. They've still got a little bit of propaganda in there. Mentioning fluid in response to well, I thought it was a boy or girl. It's like, well, it's fluid. I'm like, bleh. But the thing is I really enjoyed it. Okay. But yesterday there was an episode where you have, and people, if you're into Doctor Who and you have not seen it, please close your ears. I'm not going to give a spoiler away. I'm not going to say the end because it's mind blowing. But there's a situation where a weeping angel has made its way into a person. Okay, so you have a person, and now the weeping angel's inside and is in fact hiding there. And that person is able, or that angel communicates outside of that mouth sometimes. And we can get that kind of idea, but imagine that it's not an angel. Imagine it's disenchantment. And that disenchantment comes out through people in such a way that they now believe that they can find their order and their meaning for their life completely within themselves. Maybe without even any reference point, at least they allege that to be the case. I don't need a reference point. I don't need anybody to tell me what to do. I make up my own mind. I'm rogue. I do my own thing. I'm an individual. Of course, they don't realize, they're carbon copies. And I've said this before. It's like, the kids coming out of Hot Topic saying that they're like the most unique snowflake on the planet, and they all look the same. I'm like, you guys shop at Hot Topic. How'd you know that, man? How'd you know that? You're like, you look like you shop at Hot Topic. But you can get this idea that people, they believe that they're quite original. They believe that they're snowflakes. They believe that they're coming up with this, maybe even themselves. Kind of like a lot of individuals when they hear, thought makers, right? People who are gatekeepers, people who are influencers, and they hear these people talking, and it starts to impact the way they speak. Right? It infects their language, and they begin speaking it and embracing it without even realizing that transformation has happened. And then when they talk to their friends, it comes out as if it's natural and entirely their own. All the while, it's something that in fact has been implanted. And not just by taking something away, maybe a changed belief, but by infusing through story, infusing through narrative, infusing through media, various different means by which this happens, infusing something that provides a positive case for why they believe what they believe, not just that they don't believe something else. So this happens all the time, even with the way we talk about politics. This is not original in that sense. But why would this make unbelief so hard in the pre-modern world? Why? Why would it be difficult? A very different existential question. Because in an enchanted, porous world of vulnerable selves, quote, the prospect of rejecting God does not involve retiring to the safe redoubt of the buffered self, but rather chancing ourselves in the field of forces without him. In other words, it wasn't enough to simply divest the world of spirits and demons. It was also necessary that the self be buffered and protected. Not until that positive shift came about did atheism and exclusive humanism become more thinkable. So this relocation of meaning and its attendant buffering of the self removed one of the obstacles of unbelief. Exclusive humanism becomes a little more thinkable. So if you believed in a world that was porous and you were unsure if maybe you were being infected by something that was transcendent, something that was spiritual, whether holy or diabolical, if you believed that kind of a thing, and you weren't kind of enclosed off where you're your own eminent frame, you're your own eminent frame that you are resourcing to yourself and saying, I come up with my ideas, I come up with my values, I come up with my dreams, I come up with my meaning. And genuinely believing that that's possible. It's not. It's not. It's shallow. Your heart will remain restless. That's not how we were made. We were not made, and that's not how it works. But that is what people are doing. And it's become something that's more thinkable. We're able to actually imagine that that's possible and true. But more than that, we lived in a social, we were living socially, right? I think I skipped over that. Okay, yeah, so we were living socially. I'll talk about that in a second. We're living socially. The idea, and I love this part, as a result, a premium is placed on consensus. And, quote, turning heretic is not just a personal matter. There is no room for these matters to be one of private preference. This is a quote from Taylor, this is something we constantly tend to forget when we look back condescendingly on the intolerance of earlier ages. So how many people struggle when they look at the past and they say, look at these dummies. Look at these dummies out there and they're doing the witch trials and junk. What a bunch of weirdos. What a bunch of arrogant guys. I can't believe they would do that. Well, they're more sociocentric. They're not as individualistic as we are. It doesn't mean that they have no sense of the individual or that they're completely absorbed, because they're still Christian, right, by and large. So the social imaginary is still impacted enough by Christianity and the one and the many that results from the Trinity that you're not going to completely lose yourself in either radical individualism or radical collectivism. But there's still this idea that even though you're an individual, you have a social responsibility. And why? For the same reason that people could get in trouble if somebody broke the Sabbath law. For the same reason that people had to go out and cast stones as a group, as a society. Imagine that for a second. Imagine finding out that somebody was guilty of a certain crime, a sin crime in the Old Testament, that warranted them being put to death by stoning. In that case, if you were a man, for example, if you were one of the men and you were a citizen by the way that their feasts were set up, you would be responsible. You would be one of those to pick up those stones, as well as your circumcised sons would be able to pick up stones, and not just could, but there was a sense of responsibility that it was for the ultimate good. In fact, to them, that was the common good. And they felt a direct responsibility for that. Now you can see the way that execution is done, how individualistic we've become. You know, you have a person in the past where they put a mask on their face. They're anonymous. They represent a society, but that society, most of them don't even know. And imagine the difference that you would feel between if you were somebody, and put yourself back in those shoes. I'm dead serious. There were holy men and women, in fact, that did that. To reach down and to pick up a stone and to cast that. It was a command. You couldn't just say, nah, don't believe it. It took the lawmaker himself. It took the Lord himself to be the one to change this in any way whatsoever, or to deal in that particular situation the way he did. Right? Saying, "You without sin cast the first stone," sort of thing. And so, but before that, there was a social obligation. And if you didn't partake in that, maybe people would look at you a little bit weird. They'd kind of see you out of the corner of their eye a little bit. Like, what's up with that guy? Is he maybe letting in some kind of thing that God might judge us for because of what he's doing? Now, we could live next to somebody that's doing some pretty wicked junk, and we may not think, how difficult is it for modern people to think that God, in fact, still judges nations? And how easy is it for so many Christians to start acting like dispensationalists? That God's not really judging nations much anymore. That God's kind of changed his groove a little bit. That's the God of the Old Testament. The God of the Old Testament cares about nations. The God of the New Testament, he's like that hippie Jesus. He's the lollipop king. Throwing lemon drops and lollipops out of his float up in heaven with the angels and such. It's easy to think that. I know tons of Christians who do. That they really do make that divide. That it's like, well, that mattered before. And what I would like to say is it actually mattered before, even to Catholic people. There was a sense of the collective. There was a sense that your town, it's why churches were in the center of the town. It's why the bells would ring and people would get on their knees. If you're walking around, do you think that's going to be cool? In a place like that, the bells are ringing. You know that, Father Robert is inside with the Eucharist. Everybody's on their knees, bowing, doing signs of the cross, and Joe Schmo outside is walking around, spitting chaw on the ground. Do you think they'd be down with that? Or do you think there would be a pressure, a societal expectation? Same thing with pregnancy. We can see how pregnancy used to be treated by more than just the individual, more than just the immediate family, maybe even more than just the church itself, the local church. But instead, the area around it, there was an expectation. We can still see this. We can still see this is in the way that people will view that as a negative thing. But even now, it's all kind of wrapped up in that person. Well, you want to be able to go to high school. It's not, rarely ever is it tethered to expectations that are of spiritual significance so much as it is the utility of that person, the flourishing of that individual character within an economic mindset. Dramatically different. Disbelief has communal repercussions. He says this, the carnival's over. Okay, I've only got a couple, I think I got three slides left. Oh, it's okay. The carnival's over, lowering the bar for flourishing. And remember, if you got any questions, make sure to put them in the comments section afterward. I'm sorry that this one guy is getting pretty thick. It's getting pretty deep. I'm like, I kind of need to drink more beer maybe. And I need pizza or something. I'm dying over here. Actually, you know what? Yeah, go get, hey, yo, baby. What? I need some pizza, woman. Yeah, I need some pizza right now. Really? Right now. Oh, she's going to give me a kiss on the cheek. Just watch. Yeah, I love her. But the idea that the carnival's over, and people say, what do you mean by the carnival? Right? We're talking about this idea that when you're living in a world that has these really demanding expectations for everybody in society, it gets really tough. And you need some kind of like a vent to let out some of that pressure that builds up, some of that heat that builds up over time. We have examples of that. For example, in Fat Tuesday. We have examples of that now. They're kind of mixed up a little bit, but things with like Mardi Gras, for example. Spring break, for example, right? The way that we feast during the lead up to Christmas, not the follow up, not once Christmas is here, but the lead up that we're making excuses to, man, this is when we can eat more candy, eat more food. Halloween would be another one. But the idea is this. He says, the buffering of the self protects us from the danger of not believing in the gods. Okay, so that the privatized, individualized self protects us from the social stigma of not being part of the team. So if we're a buffered self and we give our meaning within ourselves, then it doesn't matter if the gods are privatized. Everything is privatized. Everything is given meaning. Everything is given value entirely based on what's going on inside the brain. That's it. Nothing has meaning in and of itself. Nothing has been infused with meaning as understood from a God's eye view. And instead, it's like, well, I'm into that. Different strokes, different folks. You like chocolate, I like ice cream. Yeah, I like vanilla. You like chocolate, I like ice cream. Yeah, I need more beer for real. So, like the idea is that it's in your head. That being the case, it's not as dangerous anymore not to believe in the gods. And the individualized self protects us from the social stigma. So if everybody accepts that it's completely in your brain and you're an individual and all that, and you're the only one, I'm not going to force my beliefs on that person. Everybody's got the right to believe whatever they want to believe. If that's the mentality you got, then you are also now protected from the idea of any kind of social pressure and obligation. And in fact, any pressure you might feel, you would have the right to say, look, you seem to be violating the rules. You'd be violating the rules. Taylor identifies a critical third element, right? The mundanization of the ne plus ultra, a sort of lowering the bar. Oh, yeah, baby. She did it. I told you. You gonna give me a kiss on the cheek? Get over here, woman. Yeah. Oh, I'm the luckiest man in the world. Oh, I am. Oh, and I got pizza. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm not really hurt. What? Hey, Angela. I think I burned my tongue a little bit. I need kisses. I'm kidding with you. Well, not on the show. We're on Reason and Theology. I think people are listening. What?
Say Coco can help with that.
Coco. My wife just dropped the bomb on me and said my St. Bernard could help me with that. You're a sicko! You're a gross, icky person! Oh. What did I get myself into? I'm serious. What did I get myself into, you guys? Oh. So he said, especially in Christendom, right? There's this unique tension between self-transcendence, between the self and transcendence, right? A turning of life towards something beyond ordinary human flourishing, and this worldly concern of human flourishing and creaturely existence. So there was a tension in Christianity. We feel this all the time, that we want to aspire to something big, right? In fact, we don't just want to, we feel that we are called and it's required of us to strive to do our best, to become more like him, to be less of me and more of you, to take up our cross every day and to follow him, to avoid sin, to not do those things that we want to do. And yet at the same time that we're required to do these things that are otherwise mundane, like doing dishes. Just ask a kid to do something, you'll find out how mundane most of that is. Hey, go wash the dishes for me. I don't want to do that, Papa. Go clean your room. I have to do that. They get upset about it. Why? Because they know. But there's that feeling that that's the case. And there's that tension. It's assumed that human life found its ultimate meaning and telos in the transcendent eternity, and that the demands of securing such an ultimate life required a certain ascetic relation to the pleasures and demands of mundane domestic life. I hope that there's nobody. I hope there's nobody. Trying to think here. Oh, that Haley's not going to be mad at me. Okay. We were talking about on Saturday. We're talking about the book club, right? And so we're going through St. Teresa of Avila's Interior Castle, and she's got She's cooking food. And she's got her kids with her, okay? And so her kids, sometimes they're upset about something, right? One of them was on the lap and causing a little bit of a ruckus, which of course is delightful, right? Because you know that there's a transgenerational continuity with the covenant in her family. Powerful thing, right? Powerful thing. Super glad for all those little munchkins. But to recognize, she understood, like, it's hard. She brought this up and said, it's kind of hard to think, like, when would I be able to do this? When could I have these kind of experiences in this way? And we joked and said, well, God would probably not have it happen while you're driving. I mean, if God's the one who initiates these things, if God is, and he most certainly is, okay, you don't conjure this up of your own, or else it's just magic, or just sensationalism and everything else, emotionalism and the like, hysteria, But if it's God who initiates it, he's probably not going to do it while you're driving on a highway. Next thing you're like, you're in the zone. It's like, Mom, and the Lord's like, I wasn't thinking. That's not going to happen, okay? But underlying that question that turned out being a funny kind of interaction is a real concern that's old. And that concern is that there was like a two-tier system, in a way, within Christianity, that we recognized that the transcendent, that we were supposed to transcend ourselves, that we were supposed to have a connection, in fact, with the transcendent in such a way that we're continually aspiring to be more like it, to be more like him. And at the same time, that we were trapped and that we had to keep doing these things that most people were not able to escape out into the desert like the Desert Fathers. They're not able to escape, to find themselves in not called to it. Let's say they even discerned it. Let's say they even wanted to, but they weren't called to it, into a convent or a monastery. So they're not able to dedicate themselves entirely to that. And yet, that pressure is on them. That pressure is on them to be the best they can, even in that mundane life. And it was tough. And it made people feel, in a way, that there was like this second-rate Christian concept, right? There's like two levels. One level, man, they have the fast track. One level, man, they're able to pray all the time. They're doing penances, all sorts of mortifications and such. And then there's me at home. And it's kind of like that SpongeBob episode, right? I think I mentioned it before. I may have mentioned it on Meaning of Catholic, where SpongeBob, he's got his pants, they're inflatable pants. And all of a sudden he's floating up in the sky, flying so high, kind of thing. And people are like, get down from there. Why? People aren't supposed to fly. And get down. And they get him down and stuff. And he's talking about, it was just my dream. I just wanted to, I wanted to be able to fly. And there's a woman, and she's got like curlers and stuff. And her husband's got, the 5 o'clock shadow. He's wearing a wife beater or something. And he sits there and he's like, the wife goes, you think you're the only one with unfulfilled dreams? That kind of a thing. There's a sense of that, right? It's funny because we actually understand that. But that's tough in a world that doesn't have an eminent frame. That's tough in a world where that person is expected to be more than that. How am I supposed to do that? I'm doing the dishes. How am I supposed to do that? I'm cleaning the floor. How am I supposed to do that? I'm dusting the house. How am I supposed to do that? I'm mowing the yard. I'm doing laundry. How am I supposed to do that? Can I get an amen, by the way, from the housewives? I'm dead serious. And from the guys that are out there working every day. They're like, how in the world am I going to be able to do this when I'm stuck at a cubicle all day? How am I supposed to do that? But here's the trick. In Christendom, this tension is not resolved. It was inhabited. First, the social body makes room for a certain division of labor. By making room for entirely religious vocations such as monks and nuns, the church created a source of vicarious class who ascetically devoted themselves to transcendence and eternity for the wider social body who have to deal with the nitty-gritty of creaturely life, from kings to peasant mothers, which is why patronage of monasteries and abbeys is an important expression of religious devotion for those otherwise consumed by worldly concerns. Second, the social body in Christendom has a sense of time that allows even those daily engaged in domestic life to nonetheless pursue rhythms and rituals that inhabit this tension between the pressures of now and the hopes of eternity. Think of the liturgical calendar. That's why I've said that in Christendom, what we've got is we have a combination of two things. We have a kind of cyclical time in one way, and I think that these actually work together. I think it would be cool to put together, almost like a model to show how this would operate. And maybe somebody already has. You have a liturgical cycle that every year it's coming back. We can use the same missals for a very, very, very long time. Okay? And we can expect, okay, well, here's the season, here's the equinox, here's other things going on. I can anticipate as the season's changing. Here's the ember days coming. It's starting to get cold. Okay, I know Advent is coming. Martinmas, I know that Christmas is coming. It starts to get warmer. I know Easter's coming. Summer's here. Ordinary time. Various different feasts, but a lot of ordinary time, low masses. You anticipate this. The Triduum, you know that it's coming. Holy Week, you know it's coming. Because to that extent, it is cyclical. But yet at the same time, we're moving in a direction. It's not Valhalla. We're not waking up and then going out to the battlefield and we're slaying people, we're fighting left and right. Killing people, we're dying and such. And then at the end of the day, we all wake up, and we go and we drink some mead and stuff. And then the next day, we're back fighting, we're doing our thing. So it's not that loop. It's not a rut. We still have a direction that we're moving. We're still making progress in that sense. And yet at the same time, it's overlaid. And those two things work together because we inhabited that tension. Rhythms and seasons create opportunities to live in the tension. This can be as simple as no meat on Fridays or during Lent. The rituals deal with this tension in order to foster an equilibrium. Now, here's the thing. Taylor says the weight of virtue and good order was so heavy and so much steam built up under this suppression of instinct that there had to be periodic blowouts if the whole system were not to fly apart. Here again, the equilibrium between the mundane demands and eternal requirements is maintained, not by resolving the tension in one direction or another, but by inhabiting the tension. He said it's periodically suspended. So when we have Carnival, for example, when we have these various, where people are acting a little bit wild, things are turned upside down for a while. It's a kind of ritualized anti-structure. What changes from modernity is that the modern age generates different strategies for resolving, i.e. eliminating the tension. I mean, there's a couple options, right? You can either effectively denounce creaturely domestic life and sort of demand monasticism for all, which you saw that with people, in the past where they'd be these enthusiastic cults. They'd be like, yeah, you gotta, but they have this weird eminent frame, this weird sense of like this world and everything, and yet at the same time they're wanting they're hyper escapism in a way. Or you can drop the expectations of eternity that place the weight of virtue on our domestic lives. And Taylor is going to suggest, okay, and this is where it's actually kind of a big thing for him. Taylor suggests, actually, do I have it right there? No, it's right here. That modes of reform that sought to merely clarify the tension and equilibrium actually unleashed the latter option, resolving the tension by eliminating it altogether. And so we'll end there because I think there's one. I think there's one more, but I'm already over time. I'm already over time. Well, no, I'll just read some of this, then we'll go on to the comments, okay? So right here, in documenting these shifts from the medieval to the modern imaginary, from enchantment to disenchantment, Taylor also notes a significantly different time consciousness. In the pre-modern understanding, mundane or secular time is transcended by higher time, There's an accounting of time that is not merely linear or chronological. Higher times introduce warps. So what I was talking about a moment ago. Good Friday, here's an example, by the way, from Secular Age. Good Friday, 1998, is closer in a way to the original day of the crucifixion than Midsummer's Day, 1997. So to the Catholic, right, to the Catholic person, there's a notion of time that we embrace that says that there are certain seasons where we're actually closer to the past. We're closer to that sense of interacting and that interplay between time, right? Between the past, especially the representation of Calvary. That right there is the most intense one. I mean, you're right on the money. In a fully robust way. That's just it's why the Eucharist is central to how we worship. But our encasing in secular time has changed this. We've constructed an environment, okay, in which we live a uniform, univocal secular time, which we try to measure and we try to control in order to get things done. So nothing is higher. Nothing higher is going to come down upon our calendars. It's not going to put the crunch on us. Only the tick-tock of Chronos and the self-imposed burdens of our projects. And I want you to think about that. I wrote in big, huge letters right there, Selah. Huge letters to say, look, we've gotten to a place where whether or not, and this is the summary of it all, that whether we're talking about objects, whether we're talking about ourselves and the poorest nature of ourselves, whether we're talking about the societal obligation, the connections that we have to our neighbors, the connections that we have even to those that aren't our immediate neighbors, but people in our town, that if something wicked's going on in the town, there's a sense of obligation even amongst those people that they may not know each other, but there's something there in that sociocentric model that says, that's your burden just like it's mine. This needs to get out of town. It's not just like, well, that's a bummer that the people over in that side of town have to deal with the porn shop. That would be a problem for the whole town. People would say, that's disgusting. I can't believe this is even in my town. This needs to go, because if it doesn't go, maybe God's going to judge the town. So whether it's the miraculous metals, whether it's the objects, whether it's the host, it helps to make sense as to why so many people struggle to even believe in the host, to even believe in the Eucharist, that it's the body, blood, soul, and divinity. We've seen the numbers. We've seen the numbers, and people say, well, why is that the case? And they've got these magic bullet answers all the time. And you go, it's bigger than that. It's more than that. And in fact, it's affected maybe even you, maybe even me. I know it's affected me. It's why I'm grateful for this. It's like when people said that they read Enthusiasm, and for the first time, it felt like they were seeing themselves in a mirror, and they were seeing those things in their own lives that said, man, I'm not George Fox, but I got some weird, funky stuff going on in my heart like that. I'm not a Jansenist, but I have the same similar tendencies. I had that same Achilles heel as they did. I'm not a quietist, but I still think I should be able to go around and just say whatever I want. I don't need to listen to I don't need to listen to the hierarchy pulling up a number of propositions that I say that are completely false. How dare you? Because I'm a buffered self. Because I'm weird in the Heidian sense. Western, educated, industrialized, rich, democratic, weird. And that we've even gotten to the place where even our notion of time is different. Ourselves, objects, the world around us, our relationship with our society, and time. Sila. Sila. Okay. Xander says, reason and theology, what do you think of some more liberal Catholics trying to downplay the statistic of lack of faith of the real presence? I think there's always going to be that. The liberals will always do that. And in fact, that's been a divide from the beginning. A divide that in the history of the church, interestingly enough, has rarely sided with the rigorists. They've almost always sided with those who make it easier for people to come in and to be forgiven, in fact. And that's one of the reasons why so many of the enthusiastic groups and the schismatic groups, why they were rigorous, and why that tendency more than anything else leads to that, because it seems like the church is constantly saying, well, God's grace covers even that. But God's all loving. Or God's not going to, there's no sin that God can't forgive. God died for you. That sort of thing is going to, if you're going to have a disposition, it's always going to be doing that. I don't think it's right that they make that excuse. I don't think it's right for them to go, oh, no, it's no big deal. It is a big deal. It was big enough in the past that people, that the church said, look, you have a wrong view of the Eucharist. We're going to refrain from providing the chalice to weed out folks. I mean, look, so the church is taking that very seriously. You can't just, I would never tell anybody to say, oh, no, it's fine they do that. No, man, it's terrible. And it's a terrible thing. Pray for the redoubled belief in the real presence of the glorified body of our Lord Jesus Christ in the Eucharist. I don't know if Royce and Patricia Gaffney, I don't know if she's in the Wolfpack chat, but if somebody from the Wolfpack chat can screenshot that and share that in our prayer channel, we'll make sure to pray for that. In fact, we'll do it today. Yeah. We'll do it today. Let's see here. Yeah, pay attention to your wife, Mr. Bannister. Mr. Controversial out. Yeah, some man 7. What are you talking about? Mr. Controversial? What? I'm not Mr. Controversial. What are you talking about? I'm a huggable, lovable kind of guy. It's totally true. It is totally true. Yeah. Everybody loves me. There are people who don't like me. I've seen the comment sections. I've seen a couple of them. I've seen a couple. Let's see. Chris Kasaiga says, from a social engineering perspective, this is brilliant. It exposes the agenda of why think tanks and social engineering groups and bankers push hundreds of billions every year into pushing atheism. Look, I'd like to hear more about that. I'd like to hear more about you to have that conversation, right? That's the kind of thing I'm into. I'm into those conversations. And so, Chris, if you're not on the Wolfpack chat, make sure to go there. It's on Telegram, Paleocrat Diaries Wolfpack chat. It's just the @ symbol, the Wolfpack chat. In fact, if our admins and mods and stuff, if they can just put that in there in the comments, it'd be really great. I'd love to talk to you there. You can reach out to me, a DM. And, of course, just join the chat. Make sure to mute it, though. Make sure to mute it. Let's see. Someone said, when we doubt, we aren't far away from disbelief. Oh, totally. Totally. In fact, doubt is the faith of an atheist, right? That doubt that they say, I don't know about that, but one day science is going to answer it. One day, Bill Nye, the science guy, he's going to answer it, and we're going to have the answer, and all you weirdos in the Catholic Church and all you religious people, you guys will see the truth. Yeah. Yeah, I hear you. Yeah. And they're always like, yeah, man, it's like, the religious guys come up and they think they're at the top of the mountain, and, and the scientists are coming to figure it out. And it's like, no, they didn't make it to the top of the mountain. They're still playing with their Tinker Toys at the base. Oh, I hear you, buddy. Yeah. The scientific priestly class. Let's see here. So somebody said in a comment section, not even in the live chat. Somebody said in the comment section talking about, that the Christians are supposed to be different. And I'm like, yes, okay. And they said, but basically that I'm preaching a kind of cultural Christianity. And I said, well, yes. Yes, for the same reason that I think it's better that somebody goes to church than that they don't. Even if they're going for reasons that they're like, look, I don't know if I really want to go, but I'm there. I think it's better that they're there. It's risky business. At the same time, I think it's better they're there because at least they're around other people. At least they're around the sacraments. They're not far from the confessional. And it's nice that they're not far. It's nice that they're not far from the grace that God can extend even through you, just into their lives, of your presence, just that you're there for them. And that they feel that they're part of something bigger than themselves, that they're not completely isolated. And I'm not banking on the salvific efficacy of cultural Christianity. But I am saying that I believe that we need to be Christianizing things. You better believe it. I'm a Roman Catholic, man. What are you talking about? Have you not seen our holidays, bro? Have you not seen our holidays? Yeah. I'm all about the Christianizing of things. Totally 100%, no doubt about it. It's like, and the idea, too, that, that I'm expecting the world to live as a Christian. No, I am the idea being that the gospel spreads in such a way that even the birds of the air make their nests in there. Or that it's like leaven in a batch, that, yeah, it's not the whole thing is going to go in and begin to permeate that and affect it as a whole. The idea that we are like sunbeams, right, from the SON. We're little sunbeams, and that light is shining on the just and the unjust alike, and it benefits them, the mere existence of us being there. If it doesn't, you're probably not, doing very good as a representative in the body of Christ. You're probably doing a bad job. If they're like, it's not really making anything better that person's here. I know some folks. I know some. I'm like, not that guy. Should we invite that guy to the party? No, you do not invite that person to the party. Some people don't. No, you don't want that person. Oh my gosh. Pray for the crimes of nations. Yes. And of course it's Diane. Of course. Love you, Diane. Love you, Diane. Pray for the crimes of nations. Yes. Totally 100%. We got to be baptizing them buggers. We got to baptize nations. We have a mandate that everything will be placed in subjection to Christ the King. Everything until the last thing that remains is death. Okay. That's a good mandate. That's a big deal. You're kind of called to something pretty big. Let's see. Somebody said a bad word. What? Yeah, okay. Let's see. Okay, Samuel, this will be my last one. Samuel K., are you familiar with Jonathan Pajot? You better believe I am, dude. You better believe that I am. If so, what do you think? Well, we would have disagreements on some things, but I have a lot of agreements with him. And yes, you think I'd have an interesting conversation with him. I agree, man. It's one of those guys, that I've said for a long time that I just think it'd be really cool to talk to him. I've never tried to figure out how to reach out to him though. And I should, but I don't want to be somebody in the comments section, man. I don't want to be just a rando Joe in the comments section, but I guess it's better than that than nothing at all. I'd rather do that, but there's got to be a way. There's got to be email. If somebody knows what it is and they would like to reach out to me, they can do that over on Telegram. I want to thank Phil Gonzalez, $50 there on the super chat. I always forget that we've got a super chat with this. Yeah, I think all the money goes to Michael Lofton. I think I'm just helping Michael Lofton right now. That's okay. That's okay. If you would like to support me, I have a Patreon. I don't even promote it very much, do I? I don't. And most of the stuff that I do is free. Although I'm sending out today, I'm finally, after all this time, I'm sending out a really awesome care package that's going to Australia that involves a book plus, and I can't say the other things that are given away. And this guy might be watching. And so we're going to have to go ahead and send it out today. So I got to actually get going here in a moment, as well as a handwritten letter, as well as a bookmark that my son, he drew a bookmark, and it's really nice. And so we're going to include that, and that's going to be going out in the mail today. I'll see how fast I can get. I think there's delivery times that can be up to like 2 days at the fastest, I think. And it might be like an extra $17. I think it'd be worth it. I think it'd be worth it to just finally get it there. Yeah. And if there was anything, and look, I'll just end with this. If there was anything that I said throughout the program, you said that was a little confusing, or you started on a certain point and you didn't finish it and stuff. Let me know, right? It happens. It happens, especially because today was a little bit deep. Today wasn't the happy fun time. This was actually getting down to some nuts and bolts to say, look, we had a couple episodes like that during Enthusiasm. One of those had to do with the difference between quietism, the mysticism of Madame Guyon, and the spirituality of Teresa of Avila, right? And St. John of the Cross and stuff like that. What would the difference be between their spiritualities when they're saying things that are awfully similar? That was a very serious episode, right? This today was a more serious episode. And I hope that you were okay with that. Because if for no other reason, then as soon as this is over, I am going over to the Wolfpack chat as soon as it's over. And what am I going to do? I'm going to party my brains out. Why? Because we're at 150 people. And that's what we do. We are excited. We are excited about growing, right? The empire is expanding. It's totally true. It's totally true. The empire is expanding. It's making its way to the four corners, right? All the way to the tip top of the dome. Oh, I love it. But it's a whole bunch of fun, but we're going to go over there. I got my brew. I got my pizza. I got my hush puppies. Oh, hold on. Where are the hush puppies? I'm eating one right now to give you a foretaste. Check it out. Oh, so good. We're going to party over there. If you want to join the party and you want to have a good time and talk with people who are from this comment section and everything else, join us over there. It's free. Over at Telegram. It's an amazing, amazing place. And a lot of the people that you love right here, a lot of the people that you care about, and you see their names and you see their images. You see like Vine Show there with all of the wolf emojis and hallelujah with all the thumbs up. You see that kind of a thing, okay? When you do, those people, they're over in the chat. So you gotta go. You gotta go and hang out with them, get to know them. You can DM me. As I said, we're gonna do a video chat today. We eating pizza, right? Drinking beer, just having fun, and praying, and reading books, and providing resources so that we can become saints. That we can give it our best, even in the mundane world that we live in, even in the secular age, to give our very best, because we resolve to never give up, to keep on smiling, and to memento mori.
I wanted to make people dream bigger thoughts.